Welcome back, everybody. If you are just tuning in, we just finished breaking down all the games that have happened and are currently live on the first day of March Madness. I hope your brackets aren't too busted already. In this segment, we are going to go over Friday's games, take a look at them, pick out some of the more intriguing ones to me, break it down a little bit, see who I have picked, as well as some interesting tidbits about those teams. But before we get into it, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation. Appreciate everything that you do give. If you leave a message with that tip or donation, it'll pop up on the bottom of the screen. We'll have a discussion about what you had to say. Once again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. But let's get right into it. March Madness Friday preview, that is what we will be talking about here in this second segment. And what better way to start off than the first game of the day between the Northwestern Wildcats and the FAU Owls. The Florida Atlantic, who made a wild Final Four run last season, is back in the tournament with basically the same team. They're a much higher rank this time. They're the 8 seed, taking on the 9 seed Northwestern. What I have in this game, I have Northwestern taking it. The field goal, the shooting on FAU has gone down. The defense really has been the biggest difference. Last season they were an elite defense in the league. This year they are in the 200s as far as defensive efficiency goes. They aren't quite the same team. They turn the ball over 11 times a game, and in the tournament, turnovers are vital. Those extra possessions, especially when you're playing elite opponents every single game, you can't turn the ball over and expect to win. If Northwestern can play their game and not turn the ball over like they've been doing, I expect them to win this game. Northwestern shoots at about 40% from three, which is almost 5 points higher, almost 4 points higher than FAU does. Again, a lot of this, when I'm looking at March, is defense and shooting. So having a team that kind of fell off a cliff as far as their defense goes. And this isn't to say that they're bad. It's because they have the offense to keep up with their defense. It's just when they're playing an elite team that can score and shoot the three at a really high clip like Northwestern can, FAU might be in a little bit of trouble. And even if they do make it through this, playing UConn in the second round, I don't have a good feeling about either of these teams. Second game of the day, or the second one that I found interesting, at least, UAB taking on San Diego State. And this is a lot closer than a lot of people think. Both of these teams play a very similar style of basketball. They both shoot it about the same from the field and from three. So they both, their stats, if you look at them board for board, are almost identical. Almost every single major counting stat, they are within one of each other. Rebounds, assists, steals, points, shooting, free throw shooting, 3-point shooting, everything. They are just right next to each other. They both turn the ball over 11 times a game. This is going to be a very, very, very tight game. Like I said, these two teams are very close, identical. I just think at this point, when you have teams that are so close to each other, as far as stats go and trends go, you have to go with the more talented team. And San Diego State has played a harder schedule. They've been a little bit more consistent than UAB has. It's why they're a 5 seed and UAB is a 12 seed. So I'm taking San Diego State in this game, but it is very close. UAB and San Diego State match up super well with each other. There's some games that match up well against each other because they're polar opposites, and there's some teams that match up well against each other because they're the exact same. And these two are like the exact same team. So that's going to be a really fun game to watch at 1:45 tomorrow. San Diego State is my pick, but it's going to be real tight there. I wouldn't be surprised if UAB pulled that out. You need a couple 12-5 upsets in there as well. Baylor at Colgate. Colgate's been in the tournament for the last couple years. They were a darling because of their 3-point shooting a couple years ago as a 14 seed that lost in the first round. I don't believe they've won a game. They're not quite the same team that they were when they were that everybody's sleeper pick. Baylor's a very, very good team. They shoot the ball well. They don't turn the ball over that much. Uh, you know, it's I got Baylor in this one. I don't think this one's going to be very close. I know Colgate has some tournament pedigree, but so does Baylor. They won a national championship just a couple years ago, uh, and they've been in the dance almost every single year since. So I'm taking Baylor here against Colgate as well. Next game of the day, not another one that I don't think will be too close. Marquette, who's a juggernaut of a team. You look at all those fancy Ken Pom and offensive and defensive rankings when they're doing the stats saying, oh, only these teams have ever won a national championship. Marquette is a finalist in almost every single one of those. Marquette is an elite team in this tournament. They have the shooting, they have the coaching, they have the experience. They've made a couple deep runs in the last couple seasons. Western Kentucky just does not quite match up. Maybe you look at them on paper and you say, hey, these guys might have a shot. They out rebound them on defense. Rebounds are super important, but when you're making shots, it doesn't matter. A team like Marquette is going to win. They pass the ball so well, 15 assists a game. They turn you over. They have almost 9 steals a game. It's just not going to be that close. Marquette should kill Western Kentucky. And, anything can happen. It's March Madness. It's never a good idea to come out here and be so confident about anything. Because from my experience talking about college basketball, talking about March Madness specifically, if you're confident about something, you're wrong. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, but I don't think this game will be very close. Marquette is just one of those teams that is an elite title contender this year in this year's tournament. The first game that I think might be close and one that's really interesting, New Mexico versus Clemson. We talked about New Mexico a lot as a sneaky Cinderella team. The Lobos are in that West region that we said was so volatile. You have a bunch of inconsistent teams at the top and a solid couple solid mid-major teams in St. Mary's and New Mexico. New Mexico, who I've seen some people legitimately have in their Final Four. 11 seed in the Final Four is not unheard of. We've had it happen a couple times. UCLA made that run out of the first four a couple years ago into the Final Four with their team. So it's not unheard of. It definitely isn't. And if there is a team that's going to do it, you have to be in that region. That's the region that's going to be insane. That's the one I expect to have the most craziness happen in it. This tournament always has a lot of chalk, but there's always one crazy one. And if I had to put my money on one double-digit team to make the deepest run, it would be the Lobos of New Mexico, just because they have probably... It's not an easy path, don't get me wrong. It's never an easy path, but the 11 seed is probably one of the easier paths. The 11 or the 6 seed are probably the easier paths to get through a conference, because you don't have to play that one side. You don't have to play that one seed. When you are that 11 seed, you go play the 6, then the 3, and then the 2, instead of playing the if you're the 12 seed, you play the 5, then the 4, and then the 1. So it's a little bit of an easier road if you're on that bottom half of the bracket. You don't have to face, if we go by chalk, presumably that 1 seed until the Elite 8. So it makes it a little bit easier to make that run if you are 6, 11, 3, 14, or 7, 10. But yeah, I think the Lobos could make a bit of a run, and I know a lot of people are saying that, but they're the mid-major team I expect to go the deepest in this tournament. Auburn is getting a lot of Final Four love, actually. I was talking to a whole bunch of people in my sports broadcasting class today, and they did a bracket, and I was shocked to see how many people picked Auburn to win the whole thing. Auburn is very, very good. I've heard a lot of comparisons to the team that made the Final Four in 2019, and they have very good shooting. That team was propelled by shooting. Um, I know, just like that year, they made the SEC championship and won it, but they have a tough path. Getting through Yale, I think they can do it. Yale's a solid team, but they just had a tough draw with Auburn. Where Auburn sometimes runs into trouble is when they go cold, and they can go cold. Especially if they're playing a more physical team. We saw them lose to App State earlier this season. App State, who sneaky good team. I know they didn't make the tournament, but App State is a very, very good team in their own right. They had an elite defense. They just didn't have the offense to propel them to the tourney. But Auburn did lose to them. So when they run into a tough defense like in App State and their outside shots aren't falling, it's not going to go well for them. So there's a recipe for success against Auburn, but if their shots are falling, they're hard to beat. And you could say that about just about any team, but Auburn is a contender. They are a team that people say could beat UConn. UConn, who is the odds-on favorite to win the whole tournament. So I expect them to beat Yale. Last couple games I want to go over here for Friday. James Madison at Wisconsin on Friday is very interesting, and I'm gonna try to be as unbiased as possible. I'm a James Madison student. These two teams are polar opposites playing against each other. James Madison shoots it really well and plays really good perimeter defense, but they're not very physical on the inside. If you can get them roughed up and they get them out of their game, they are going to start shot chucking, and that's when they get into trouble. If they're comfortable, they move the ball around well, and they got a lot of open shots. That's why they average 16 assists a game. They're very good at passing the ball, very good at forcing turnovers. Wisconsin, on the other end, they don't quite have that physical ability, but they like to play slow. James Madison is a faster team. They play a little bit faster than Wisconsin does, who likes to slow down the pace. Who in this game should be determined by whoever's pace it's played at. If the Badgers are badgered in to playing that fast pace that the JMU Dukes like to play, I don't expect them to win this game. But if JMU has to slow down for Wisconsin and Wisconsin is able to control the pace of play, JMU is not a particularly efficient team. They're very good on offense because they force a lot of turnovers and they get a lot of shots up. They get a bunch of offensive rebounds. They average about 12 offensive rebounds a game. They get a lot of second chance points, and they get a lot of shots. They're not super efficient. They do shoot 48% from the field, but if you watch them, they miss a lot of shots. But they also they get a lot of chances, which is why they have the 9th most points per game in the entire country. So this game is going to be decided on pace. That's a game I'm very excited to watch, not just because I'm a fan, but I think that's going to be a good game. And then the last one I wanted to talk about is St. Mary's taking on Grand Canyon. The Lopes taking on the Gales. St. Mary's, again, in that in that West region, anything can happen. The Lopes, GCU, started off super hot. They had the most wins or the fewest losses for a long time. They'd won their tournament, got in. These 12 seeds this year are no joke. I'd be very careful as a 5 seed. That being said, I do have St. Mary's. I love St. Mary's this year in their bracket. I think they match up very well against a lot of teams in the West. I expect them to make a deep run, but nothing is sure in that West region. When we come back, we are going to go over transition away from March Madness. We are going to move into some baseball. There's a crazy story developing right now between Shohei Ohtani, the Dodgers, and his translator, now former translator, who was fired, and illegal gambling. So we're going to break all of that down. It is an insane story. Stick around. We'll be right back.